It's time now for the Premier Podcast, the official real estate video podcast of Premier Realty Group of West Tennessee. We have 3 offices to serve you in McKenzie, Paris, and Huntingdon. Online at prealtygroup.com. Now, let's get started with today's Premier Podcast.
Welcome back to the Premier Podcast. I'm Kelly Green, the Marketing Director for Premier Realty Group of West Tennessee. We have offices in McKenzie, Huntingdon, and Paris. My co-host today on the podcast, as always, is Garry Wicker. He is our principal broker in Paris. Garry, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Kelly?
Doing well. And our special guest on the podcast today is Amanda Visser. She is one of our affiliate brokers, one of our agents. Amanda, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
We're calling this podcast Sellers Shouldn't Settle. So Amanda's going to take us through kind of the whole process of what happens when a seller signs a contract. They're ready to sell, ready to get rid of your house. You're ready to get rid of your property, your farm, your land. What comes after that contract is signed between seller and agent? What happens next?
Okay, what happens next? A lot happens next.
Right.
So initially, after the paperwork is all signed, it's time to get in there and get measurements and pictures. And Premier also, if the house is good for it, in that it's clean and great condition, we have the Matterport 3D tour we can do for people. Mm-hmm. So that's something I always talk to people about and make sure they're comfortable with that, because not everybody wants their home, gone through that in depth.
Right.
So the measurements, the pictures, the video, if it has acreage, we have a drone that we can come do.
Aerial video.
And Kelly here does that. He does a great job. And then, the advertising is just insane here at Premier. We put it on all kinds of sites that we can think of that fit the property type.
Right.
Because you don't want to just plaster it everywhere.
And I don't know if people realize that, what goes through marketing a property, but you're right. We put it on multiple sites where it gets out there across the nation, across the world, really.
Right.
Yeah, and with MLS, there are certain sites that it populates to anyway, but we even go above and beyond that and add it to other sites that it wouldn't automatically pull on the internet from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll brag on Amanda if I'm allowed. I'm not allowed. Am I
You
allowed
can brag on her.
Okay, I can pick favorites. One of the most organized people I've ever met, takes incredible pictures of listings, and from start to finish, she's on it.
Well,
she
thank
really
you.
is. Well, no, that's true. It's
That's
100% true.
It's one of those things that I guess pride is the word. I take pride in it. I realize how serious it is because they have trusted me with their property. And so as I go through the house, one of the hardest things to do for me is to tell someone that something needs to change or you need to do this, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But aside from those things, which might be kind of considered major, the minor things as you go through the house, just making sure the toilet lids are down, hiding the wastebasket for a second, and shuffling. Everybody has that little stack of papers sitting around somewhere.
Right.
So if I see that, I'll just pick it up and tell them I'll put this right back as soon as I'm finished with this room. And nobody cares that I do that. It's not like I'm pilfering through them or anything, but
a lot of little things like that
goodness.
don't happen when some people are selling their home can add up to one big thing that maybe keeps their home from being sold.
Yes. I think pictures are so important.
Crucial.
And as a seller, if you have blurred, crooked, duplicate things showing, like if you didn't get your laundry room all picked up that day, that probably shouldn't go on the internet. Pets and children and all of that, the house needs to be really top notch, and the agent needs to take good photos, whether that be the angle they're shooting from or just taking time to make sure they edit them. It really doesn't take that long to get in. I just use Google Photos.
Yeah.
And you can level the picture if it's crooked. There's just all kinds of stuff you can tweak.
And if I'm a seller and I see my pictures on a website or on an MLS and I'm not happy with the way they look, I don't need to be quiet about that.
Absolutely not. Yes, just please let us know if we have taken a picture that you don't like. It can be removed. If you need all new pictures, we can do that.
Yeah.
Just that line of communication remains open throughout your entire listing.
And I think that's a big thing, the line of communication that that's expected and honestly required from us there too. It's a two-way street. We were talking a little bit before we got started here about types of communication and the ways that different people communicate. Talk a little bit about that, Amanda.
That's right. We have people that love to text. We have people that expect you to come sit down in front of them. We have people that prefer email. We all are just so busy in this world, and they may not want to be bothered with a text. There's a lot of people that feel like it's just very uncomfortable for them and they don't understand it, and that's fine. So if you don't want to be communicated with a certain way, absolutely let us know so we can fix it.
And I know a lot of times you and Gary both are dealing with sellers or potential buyers, sorry, not sellers, but buyers who are out of state. So, I mean, that's the only way you can communicate, phone, email, or text.
Right.
So we're going to make you happy either way, but we're here to please you. There's nothing wrong with any of those ways of communication, but we're here to make it easy for you.
Just whatever they're most comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly right. So as far as the house gets listed, you're the seller's agent. If they have questions, they don't need to, there's no dumb questions as far as that goes. They need to ask. They need to speak up and make sure they're asking you if they're, because there's a lot of paperwork that goes into it, so they need to make sure they speak up, right?
Yes, absolutely. Those contracts have so much language in them.
Yeah.
And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to ask this guy right here.
Right.
And if he doesn't know, which so far hasn't happened, by the way, I will go on, and research it however I need to get your questions answered.
Because you, to them, are the expert. So if they have questions, they need to ask the expert.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
and one of the things, too, that is in doing that, we do our job so often that we forget what the consumer doesn't know, what our clients don't know a lot of times. And so we try to be, again, as we were talking, I try to, as I'm pushing paperwork across, explain everything. And then I say, if there's anything you don't understand, that communication is important there. Give us a call, sit down with us and talk about it or do the email or whatever.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts as far as why sellers shouldn't settle? Any other things that we've left out?
There is one more thing that I can think of, and it's also very, very important to the listing. That is your description. When people get online, they want information, and now.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to call the office to find out more information.
And sometimes you can't assume things just by looking at it. If you look at a picture, you may assume one thing or another, but if the description's there, it kind of clarifies everything.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I just can't stand, and that's to get on to a beautiful listing or even a not so beautiful listing and see two sentences in the description.
Right.
We have a really sizable area when we're entering listings. You should have a good sized paragraph.
Yeah. Well said. Gary, final thoughts for Amanda?
It's just that when we do what we do, never assume anything on either side. I can't emphasize enough how important the communication is, and I know that's why we call this "Don't Settle," because if you've listed with somebody or if you're trying to buy through somebody and you're not getting the feedback that you need from either the agent that you're using or that agent's company or whatever, you should be able to get that level of satisfaction from them. And I think that's something that we work on hard here in our office and in our company especially, making sure that we, dot our T's, dot our I's, dot our T's, whatever we're dotting.
We'll dot everything.
We dot everything. We want to make sure that it's right. And, it's important. I appreciate Amanda so much because she's always asking me questions and she's always keeping me on my toes and always, she's always pushing me to stay ahead of the envelope as well to know those answers that our clients deserve.
Right. And by the way, if you have questions for Amanda, it's amanda@prealtygroup.com. If you have questions for the podcast or something you'd like us to discuss on the podcast at prealtygroup.com. Now let's go ahead.
He touched on something, and it reminded me of another topic. Worst case scenario, because sometimes personalities just do not jive no matter how hard you work. Worst case scenario, there is a form that releases the seller from their listing agreement, and a lot of sellers may not be aware of that. I'm not saying please break that and come here. I just want people to know what's available to them. Yeah,
and that is important, those personalities, because I know it's hard to believe, but not everybody out there that I come across is going to just fall in love with me. They're just not, and you have the right. And we'll get into agency at some point and talk about that a little bit more, because that can be really deep. I mean, that's a whole podcast by itself. But we practice designated agency, meaning that the broker in the office owns all the listings, and if you're working with somebody and you're not happy with them, the first thing I'm going to do is try to figure out how to make that work with you and that agent. And then still, and especially this works more for buyer's agents, if you're not happy with the person that you're working with, we can move you to somebody else in the office that you can work better with. So, just don't give up and walk away from us. Let us try to work things out. Again, communication, what the buyer, what the seller should know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, let's switch gears for a moment and talk about a couple of your listings. She has two of the most beautiful listings in Paris, Tennessee that I've ever seen. Let's start with 220 Owenwood Place. I've been inside this home. I've photographed this home. It's absolutely gorgeous, Amanda.
It really is. It's so stately, and just the setting could not be more perfect. I just love it. Inside I'll just say, the seller has reduced the price. We started out at $350,000, and now we're down to $315,000. That is due to the fact that the seller acknowledges, it doesn't really need repairs, but people aren't going to necessarily love the cosmetic aspect of it. So the seller feels like this price reduction is going to help a buyer to come in there and do whatever they want to do to make it their own.
And outside, we're close to water. Would you call that a mini lake? What do you call that? I mean, it's right behind the house.
Right. It is a 2-acre pond is behind the property.
Yeah.
There is a thick grove of pine trees between the house and the property. So someone may love that. Someone may want to clear some of that. But it's just so gorgeous there. Yeah,
it really is. And for a showing, Amanda at prerealtygroup.com, or you can call her cell 731-336 1933. All right.
So in answer to your question, is it a lake or what exactly? If you're selling it in the business, it's a lake. If you're buying it, it's a pond.
Okay, there you go.
That's
a little
true.
behind the scenes, behind the curtain of the real estate industry.
There you go.
All right, let's talk about 175 Castleton Cove in Paris. I've seen this one too. Very spacious, very beautiful.
Goodness.
And again, water right behind it.
Yes. This one, you don't own the whole pond, but you have a gorgeous view. I have not taken the time to measure this one on the tax map, but it's probably 4 acres, give or take. This home is technically a 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, but upstairs, off of one of the upstairs bedrooms, is another huge room that all it would take is a doorway into the really long closet that already goes in behind this room to make it a 6-bedroom, 4.5 bath. I'm talking space.
Yeah.
The basement is nice and dry and clean. It is not your typical musty-smelling basement. And then upstairs is open to below with the exposed rafters. It's just really, really pretty. Got a lot of elbow room, so to speak, and it's very, very quiet.
Gotcha. Again, to get in touch with Amanda Visser, Amanda at prerealtygroup.com, 731-336-1933.
That's it.
Amanda, thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Great
Thanks
job.
for having me.
Mm-hmm.